AITA for demanding my boyfriend pay rent or move out. He's been living with me for a year rent-free while he saves money. I found out he's not saving. He's been sending $1,500 a month to his ex-wife for bills that aren't required by their divorce. He says she's struggling and I'm being selfish. Okay, so I'm 35F and I might be losing my mind here. My boyfriend Tom is 38M and we've been together for 2 years. He moved into my condo about a year ago and this whole situation has blown up in my face. Background: Tom was married for 12 years before we met. His ex-wife Diane left him for someone else about 4 years ago. They have 2 kids together, ages 14 and 11. Tom pays child support, court-ordered, everything legal and proper. He's a good dad, sees his kids regularly, never misses a payment. That's not the issue. When Tom and I started getting serious, he was renting a small apartment across town. After about a year of dating, he was complaining about his rent going up again. I own my condo outright, bought it 6 years ago and paid it off early, no mortgage. I suggested he move in with me. He was hesitant at first, said he didn't want me to think he was using me. I said that was ridiculous. We were in a committed relationship and it made financial sense. My place is bigger, nicer, closer to his work. Plus we were basically living together already. He was at my place most nights anyway. We agreed on a plan. He'd move in rent-free for a year so he could save up money. After a year, we'd reassess and he'd start contributing. The idea was he'd save enough for us to maybe buy a house together eventually, or at least build up an emergency fund. He was paying like $1,400 a month for his apartment, so living with me free would let him sock away serious money. I paid all the utilities, groceries, everything. Tom would occasionally buy dinner or pick up household items, but nothing substantial. I didn't mind because I thought he was saving that $1,400 plus his other expenses every month. Over a year, that's nearly $20,000 saved. That was the plan. The year mark hit last month. I brought up the conversation about him starting to contribute. Maybe not half of everything since I own the place, but something like $800 a month plus splitting utilities and groceries seemed fair. Tom got really uncomfortable, started hemming and hawing about how he hadn't saved as much as he'd hoped. I was confused because where did the money go? He makes decent money as an IT manager, with no rent to pay. Where was it all going? He said he'd had some unexpected expenses. I asked what expenses. He got defensive and said he didn't need to justify every dollar to me. That raised red flags immediately because we'd been talking about possibly getting engaged and you don't hide finances from someone you're planning to marry. I pushed the issue, told him if we're living together and talking about a future, I need to understand where the disconnect is. He finally admitted he'd been helping Diane with bills. I was confused. He pays child support. That's supposed to cover his share of the kids' expenses. What other bills was he paying? Turns out, he's been sending Diane $1,500 every single month for the past year, on top of child support. I just stared at him. That's $18,000. He'd been living rent-free in my home, saving nothing, and sending nearly $2,000 a month to his ex-wife. I asked why. He said Diane was struggling financially. Her new husband left her about 8 months ago and she's having trouble making ends meet. She'd asked Tom for help and he couldn't say no because she has their kids. I said the kids are covered by child support. That's literally what it's for. He said yeah, but Diane can't afford the mortgage on the house without help. If she loses the house, the kids lose stability. I said that's not his problem. They're divorced. She left him. She made choices that led to her current situation. He said he couldn't let his kids be homeless. I pointed out that if Diane can't afford the house, she needs to sell it and downsize. Plenty of single parents manage without their ex secretly funding their lifestyle. He said I didn't understand because I don't have kids. That stung. We'd talked about maybe having kids together someday. Now he was using my childless status as a weapon. I told him he had 2 choices. Start paying rent and stop sending money to Diane, or move out. He said I was being unfair, that he was trying to do the right thing for his children. I said the right thing is being honest with your partner about finances and not taking advantage of someone's generosity. He'd been living completely free at my place while sending $1,500 to his ex-wife every month. How was that okay? He said I was being selfish and jealous, that this wasn't about Diane, it was about his kids. I said his kids are fine, they have child support, they have 2 parents, what they don't need is their dad going broke trying to maintain their mom's lifestyle. He packed a bag and went to stay with his brother. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I've gotten texts from his sister calling me heartless. His mom left me a voicemail saying family helps family and I clearly don't understand that. Even one of his friends reached out saying Tom's just trying to be a good dad and I'm making it about money. But here's the thing, it is about money. He lied by omission. He let me believe he was saving when he was actually funding his ex-wife's bills. He lived rent-free while I paid for everything, and apparently thought that was fine because he was helping his kids. His kids have a roof over their heads, they have food and clothes and everything they need. That's what child support is for. What Diane doesn't have is her ex-husband's new partner subsidizing her mortgage because she can't afford the house she insisted on keeping in the divorce. Tom texted yesterday asking if I'd calm down and if we could talk. I said sure. We can talk when he's ready to either pay rent or discuss moving his stuff out permanently. He said I was being unreasonable and punishing his children for Diane's struggles. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm setting a boundary. Either he's my partner who contributes to our household, or he's Diane's ATM who happens to have a girlfriend with free housing. My best friend says I'm right and that Tom's been using me. My sister says I'm being too harsh and that Tom's in a difficult position. My coworker says I should have established rent from day one, and this is what happens when you don't set clear expectations. But we did set clear expectations. The expectation was he'd save money. He didn't save money. He gave it to his ex-wife instead. So tell me, am I wrong here? Should I let him continue living rent-free while he sends $1,500 a month to his ex? Or am I right to demand he either contribute to our household or move out? Because right now his family thinks I'm a monster for not wanting to indirectly pay his ex-wife's mortgage. Update, 1 week later. Well, that escalated quickly. Thanks for all the responses on my last post. The support helped me feel less crazy. Here's what happened. Tom came by 4 days ago to talk things through. He brought coffee and pastries like that was going to fix everything. We sat down and he started with an apology. Sort of. He said he was sorry for not being upfront about the money going to Diane. He said he should have told me from the beginning. I agreed. Then he said but he hoped I understood why he did it. I asked him to explain it to me then. Really explain it. He said when Diane's second husband left, she panicked about money. She called Tom crying, saying she couldn't afford the house payment and the kids were going to have to change schools if she had to move. She begged him for help. I asked why she couldn't get a roommate or a second job or literally any solution that didn't involve her ex-husband. He said she works full-time already and the kids are old enough that having a roommate would be weird. I said weirder than having your ex-husband secretly pay your bills? He didn't like that. He said I was being flippant about a serious situation. His kids were at risk of being uprooted and he had the means to prevent that. So he did. I asked him point blank, did he discuss this with me before he started sending the money? He admitted he didn't because he knew I'd react badly, so he knew I wouldn't be okay with it and did it anyway, behind my back, while living rent-free in my home. I asked how long he planned to keep sending her money. He said until she got on her feet. I asked when that would be. He said he didn't know. Maybe another year or two. Another year or two of $1,500 a month. That's potentially another $36,000, all while living in my condo, eating my food, using my utilities, saving nothing for our theoretical future together. I told him that wasn't happening. He could either commit to paying rent here and stop sending money to Diane, or he needed to find somewhere else to live where he could send her as much money as he wanted. He said those weren't fair options. I said they were the only options. Then he dropped a bomb. He said maybe we should take a break. That clearly we weren't on the same page about family obligations and priorities, that he needed to be with someone who understood. That his kids come first. I said his kids do come first. He pays child support. He sees them regularly. He's involved in their lives. But paying his ex-wife's mortgage isn't putting his kids first. It's enabling his ex-wife. He said I'd never understand because I don't have children. There it was again. The "you're not a parent" card. I told him to get his stuff and leave. He looked shocked. Said he thought we were discussing options. I said no. He was discussing options. I'd already told him my boundaries. He just told me he wasn't willing to respect them, so we were done. He tried to backtrack, said he didn't mean we should actually break up. I said too late. He'd shown me exactly where I ranked in his priorities. Below Diane, below a house that wasn't even his, below an ex-wife who left him for another man. He got angry then, said I was being cruel and heartless, that he was trying to do the right thing and I was making him choose between me and his kids. I said he was choosing between me and his ex-wife's financial convenience. His kids were never part of this equation except as emotional manipulation. He left, took some of his stuff but not everything, said he'd be back for the rest when I was thinking more clearly. That was 2 days ago. Yesterday I got a call from Diane. Yeah, his ex-wife called me. She said Tom told her we'd broken up because of her. She wanted to clear the air. I was honestly too shocked to hang up, so I listened. She said she never asked Tom to pay $1,500 a month. She'd asked him for help with one mortgage payment 8 months ago when her ex left. Just one. Tom insisted on setting up monthly payments. She'd told him it wasn't necessary but he insisted. I asked if she'd been accepting the money. She said yes, because it helped, but that she'd told Tom multiple times she could manage without it, that she'd gotten a promotion 3 months ago and was doing fine financially now. She said Tom had a savior complex about her and always had, that even during their marriage, he'd tried to manage everything for her like she was incapable. It was part of why she'd left. Then she said something that really hit me. Tom needs to be needed. If you're too independent, he'll find someone who needs him more. That's just who he is. I asked why she was telling me this. She said because Tom's a good guy but he's exhausting and she didn't want me to waste years figuring out what she'd already learned. We talked for about 30 minutes. It was surreal having this conversation with my boyfriend's ex-wife, but it was enlightening. She painted a picture of someone who needs to be the hero, even when there's no crisis to solve. After we hung up, I looked back at our relationship differently, how Tom was always trying to fix things for me even when I didn't ask, how he'd get almost disappointed when I handled stuff myself, how he'd look for problems he could solve. I thought he was just helpful. Turns out he was feeding a need to be indispensable. Tom came by last night for his stuff. I told him I'd talked to Diane. He went pale. I told him what she'd said about the money and the savior complex. He tried to deny it at first. Then he admitted that yeah, maybe he'd been sending more than Diane needed, but it was because he wanted to make sure she was okay. I asked why. They're divorced. She left him. Why does he need to make sure she's okay? He said because she's the mother of his children and he'll always care about her well-being. I said there's caring about someone's well-being and then there's paying their mortgage for 8 months after they tell you they don't need it. Those aren't the same thing. He got defensive, said Diane probably just told me that to make him look bad. I showed him the Venmo transactions Diane had sent me. Tom had paid her $1,500 every month even after she'd sent him messages saying, Tom, I really don't need this and I got the promotion. You can stop sending money. He'd ignored her, kept sending it, because he needed to be her hero. I told him to take his stuff and go. We're done. He tried to argue more but I just started putting his things in boxes and setting them outside. He finally left, took everything yesterday evening. Haven't heard from him since. His sister texted me saying I'm making a huge mistake, that Tom's one of the good ones and I'm too stubborn to see it. I didn't respond. His mom called and left another voicemail about how I'm going to regret letting him go. Also didn't respond, but I also got a text from Diane saying if I ever need someone to talk to about dealing with Tom's family, she's around, and weirdly, that might be the beginning of the strangest friendship ever. Small update, 3 weeks later, just a quick update since people have been messaging me asking how things are. Tom has not reached out since he got his stuff. His family finally stopped contacting me after I blocked his sister's number. His mom sent one final email that I didn't read before blocking her too. I ran into Tom's brother at the grocery store last week. He was nice, actually. Apologized for his sister's behavior and said he'd tried to tell Tom he was being an idiot. Said Tom moved back into his old apartment building and is figuring things out. The interesting part, I've actually become friendly with Diane. We've met for coffee twice. It's weird but also kind of great to compare notes about Tom's behavior. She's funny and surprisingly normal. We're not best friends or anything but it's nice to know someone else who gets it. Diane told me Tom asked her on a date last month. Yeah, like literally right after we broke up. She said no, obviously, and told him he needed to get it together. She said he told her our breakup made him realize he never really got over her. She told him that was unhealthy and he needed to stop using her as an emotional crutch. Good for her for having boundaries. I'm doing fine. My condo feels like mine again. I'm not subsidizing anyone's savior complex. I'm not questioning whether I'm being supportive enough. My bank account looks better without the extra utility and food costs. I'm sleeping better. I'm honestly just relieved it ended before we got engaged or bought property together. A few people asked if I felt bad about kicking him out. Nope, not even a little. He had a year of free rent and used it to fund his ex-wife's lifestyle while lying to me about saving money. He's 38 years old. He can figure out his living situation. I've started dating again casually, nothing serious. Just reminding myself what it's like to go out with someone who doesn't have an ex-wife they're financially enmeshed with. That's pretty much it. No dramatic confrontations. No big revelations. Just a clean break and a lesson learned about setting boundaries early. Final update, 4 months later. Okay, so this is my actual final update because things have reached a conclusion and I want to close the book on this whole mess. Tom got engaged to someone he's been dating for 2 months. Yes, you read that right, 2 months. I found out because Diane texted me screenshots of Tom's Facebook announcement. The woman's name is Amy and from what I can see, she's recently divorced, has 3 kids, and according to Diane's detective work, her words, is in some serious financial trouble. Diane and I had a good laugh about it. Tom found someone who actually needs saving. Good for him, I guess. But that's not the biggest news. About 6 weeks ago, I was at my favorite coffee shop when a guy started chatting with me in line. His name's Kevin. He's 37, works in architecture. We talked for 20 minutes and exchanged numbers. We've been dating since. It's early but it's really good. He owns his own condo too, paid off. Like mine, we split everything 50-50 even. Though we both insist on paying. He has no ex-wife, no kids, and no savior complex that I can detect. Last weekend Kevin and I were having brunch and talking about past relationships. I told him about Tom. He listened to the whole story and then said, so he was living rent-free and sending money to his ex. That's not being a good dad, that's being a bad boyfriend. Exactly, thank you. Kevin said when he was younger he dated someone who had a savior complex and it was exhausting. Said you can't ever relax because they're always looking for the next crisis to solve. Said it's manipulative even when they don't mean it to be, because it puts you in a position of either accepting their help or being the bad guy who rejects their generosity. That's exactly what it felt like with Tom. Every time I'd solve my own problem, he'd look almost disappointed. Now I understand why. I saw Tom about a month ago. Actually, I was at Target and spotted him in the home goods section with a woman I assume was Amy. He had a cart full of storage containers and cleaning supplies. She was on the phone arguing with someone about money. Tom saw me, did this weird wave but not really gesture. I nodded and kept walking. Didn't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, nothing. Just total indifference. That's how I know I'm completely over it. Diane and I still meet up. Occasionally, she's dating someone too, a guy she met at her gym who, according to her, is blessedly uncomplicated and has never tried to fix a single thing for me without asking first. We joke that we should start a support group for Tom's exes. Tom's sister sent me a friend request on Facebook last week. I declined. I'm not interested in any connection to that situation anymore. Here's what I learned from all of this. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Tom showed me he was willing to lie, manipulate, and take advantage of my generosity to fund his hero complex. I'm glad I found out after 1 year instead of 5. I also learned that having boundaries doesn't make you selfish. It makes you smart. Tom's family tried to make me feel guilty for not wanting to indirectly fund his ex-wife's lifestyle, but there's nothing wrong with expecting honesty and reciprocity from a partner. And I learned that sometimes the most valuable thing you get from a bad relationship is clarity about what you won't accept in the next one. Kevin and I are taking things slow. We've talked about moving in together eventually, but not until we're both ready and we have clear agreements about finances and expectations. He actually suggested we write down what we each expect from cohabitation before we even consider it. I almost cried. Communication. Who knew? My condo is still just mine. I like it that way for now. When and if Kevin and I move in together, it'll be because we both want to, not because someone needs free rent. As for Tom, I hope he figures out his issues. I hope he realizes you can't save everyone and that trying to do so is exhausting for everyone involved. I hope he and Amy are happy, though I have my doubts based on the fact that he proposed after 8 weeks. But mostly, I hope he stops using my kids as justification for poor financial decisions and dishonesty. His kids deserve better than being used as emotional shields for their dad's savior complex, and I deserved better than being a free place to live while he played hero to his ex-wife. I got better. I got Kevin, who pays his own bills, respects boundaries, and doesn't need me to be helpless so he can feel valuable. I got Diane as a friend, which is bizarre but also kind of perfect. I got my condo back to myself, my bank account healthier, and my sanity intact. Tom got engaged to someone he barely knows who needs him to solve her problems. I know who got the better deal. This chapter is closed. Tom is someone I used to date, nothing more. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm just grateful I found out who he really was before we got married or had kids or bought property together. 1 year of free rent cost me nothing in the long run. It actually saved me from years of being someone's financial backup plan. Best investment I never made, and that's the end of this story. Tom is living his life, I'm living mine, and never the two shall meet again, exactly how it should be.